Hello and welcome to the Taste Test for the Win webinar. This is part of the OPI School Nutrition Program's Webinar Wednesday series. I'm Aubrey Roth and I will be your presenter today. I'm the Montana Farm to School Coordinator for Montana Teen Nutrition Program. We are housed at MSU and provide training and guidance to schools on behalf of the Office of Public Instruction School Nutrition Programs. I am delighted to serve as the coordinator and main contact of the Montana Harvest of the Month program, which I'll talk a little bit about today. During this webinar, we are going to talk about why taste testing is so important and how to conduct successful taste tests. I have gathered tips, tricks, taste test successes, and fails from folks across Montana and have incorporated them throughout this presentation. I just want to extend a huge thanks to all those who shared their information with me. There are many reasons to conduct taste tests. Research has shown that children and adults need up to 20 times of trying a new food before they say they'll like it. That's a lot of yucks to make it through. Children and adults, and perhaps more often adults, have strong food preferences and dislikes that may not have anything to do with the food itself. For example, I have disliked cottage cheese my entire life, but until last year, I honestly cannot recall ever trying it. In true taste test fashion, I tried it 20 times last year, and it turns out it isn't horrible. I'm still not craving cottage cheese, but I find it tolerable, and I've found a few ways that I enjoy it. For school nutrition programs, taste testing can be a great way to see how new recipes work without the cost of a full meal production. It can reduce food waste, especially when featuring new foods or recipes, since students can get excited when it is offered in a meal, rather than being wary of an unknown food. Similar, taste testing can increase participation by getting students excited about a particular recipe being featured on the menu. Clearly, taste tests are effective in the retail setting at getting people to try and then buy a product. Just think about Costco. You think you're having a little harmless sample and then you walk out with 5 pounds of chocolate-covered pomegranates or 2 cases of mandarin oranges. It can also get staff and parents interested in the school meals programs and trying new foods too. By getting students to become adventurous eaters and being willing to try new foods, you are helping them to form healthy eating habits. Research suggests that eating habits form at an early age, so it is vital to introduce children to a wide variety of healthy foods while teaching them about important nutrition and well-being concepts. If you're participating in Montana Harvest of the Month, you already know that monthly taste tests using the Tried It, Liked It, Loved It system are required because taste testing is so important. For that reason, a lot of our taste test wisdom we have collected is from the Montana Harvest of the Month sites. But beyond that, taste testing can support nutrition education, culinary classes, farm to school endeavors, fresh fruit and vegetable snack program, and many other things that are already happening in your school, after school program, or early care and education site. And of course, taste tests provide a great way to engage students in promoting healthy, delicious foods, and I'll talk a little bit about that later. So let's explore how to be successful. We are going to go through each of these recommendations in more detail, but I want you to get a sense of what you are in for. Since this entire webinar is about taste tests, we are really going to get into the nitty-gritty, which may seem overwhelming. However, a taste test can be a very simple, easy thing to do. I hope this provides you with an idea of where to start and how to grow. While I'm sure that many successful taste tests are thrown together at the last minute, you'll save yourself a lot of anxiety by taking a little time to think through how they will work. You can break this down to a simple what, why, where, when, and who. Let's start with what. We're taste testing. Why? What is the purpose of the taste tests? To test new recipes for a school meals program? To support nutrition education? The reason you are conducting taste tests will somewhat determine how you will conduct the tastings. Where? Where will the recipes or foods be prepared? Will they be conducted in the cafeteria or in the classroom or maybe somewhere else? Some schools serve the taste test right on the service line alongside the meal, passing out additional samples to students who aren't eating the meal. Others will hand out samples while students are waiting in line or are sitting down eating. These latter options certainly take more people, since at least 1 to 3 people will be needed to walk around with a tray or cart handing out samples. But for some sites, it's what works for them. Taste tests can also be conducted in a classroom, in after-school programs, and at special events. In locations outside of a cafeteria, consider what extra precautions might need to be taken to ensure food safety and quality. With any location, think through the flow of how people will get their taste tests, and if collecting feedback, how they will do that, and discard any trash. When? When will the food be prepared, and when are the taste tests conducted? It is recommended to have a regular schedule, such as the first Tuesday of the month, so students can come to expect it and get excited to try something new. If you're taste testing to support your school meals program, it is best to do the taste test before it appears on the menu. This is especially important to reduce food waste. If the recipe was a flop, which some definitely are, then you waste less food and money with a small batch than making enough to be a component in a meal. If your program requires that students make certain meal selections in advance of the service line, be sure to taste test that item prior to when they make those selections. This can be helpful in schools with a la carte options or multiple lines. If they have already tried the item, they may be more likely to go to that line. Some sites do the taste test as part of their meal service. For example, in Gardner, they always offer a tasting bite of a food that a kid is hesitant to take. They can sit down, give it a try, and then come back for a full serving if they like it. It is also helpful if a taste test follows an educational activity or a promotion of that item. For example, in Harvest of the Month sites, it is best to conduct the educational activity first, which is then often combined with the taste test. Then it's followed by the food being featured in a meal or snack. Who? It is obviously pretty important to know who is planning, promoting, preparing, serving, and sharing or using results of the taste tests. While some taste tests are solely managed by food service, they are often a partnership. Be clear about the roles and expectations in advance of any taste test. Make sure to create and share a schedule if multiple people are involved. I will talk more about who to get involved in a bit. And don't be afraid to change your methods or your timing. You should find what works best for you and your students, and sometimes that'll change. As I mentioned before, taste testing can support many other programs and efforts like Farm to School, National School Lunch and Breakfast programs, Summer Food Service programs, Fresh Fruit and Vegetable program, Harvest of the Month, Food Corps, and more. Hinsdale is a great example of taste testing and collecting feedback from students to support their Farm to School and Harvest of the Month efforts. Margot is showing off beautiful carrots that were grown by students. Know that you don't have to do it alone, but you can if you want. It can be helpful to get others involved in any step of the process, from planning to sharing results and every step in between. This can be a great way to have parents or staff help make the changes that they might be suggesting to you for your school meals program. People shared that they are working with all types of partners and volunteers to conduct their taste tests, including parents, teachers and other school staff, organizations, Food Corps members, AmeriCorps Vistas, interns such as Montana Dietetic interns, and of course, students. Renata at Alder School has 2 secretaries help with overseeing, counting, and helping students. She shared, "It is a bit tricky with the short amount of time the kiddos have to eat, but the teachers are really nice about running a bit later on the voting days." Be sure to make a schedule and be clear about expectations and roles, and have a backup plan if people are sick or unavailable. Students generally love hands-on learning opportunities. Taste testing can be a perfect way for them to put classroom concepts into practice. Multiple schools reported that getting students involved in the process improved effectiveness. Think about the different ways students can be involved and how they can be recruited. Inquire with teachers or club advisors like FCCLA or FFA. Don't forget about those marketing aspects as well. Connecting back to farm to school efforts like garden clubs or classes is another great option. Students can be involved from the very beginning with growing the food. Kids that grow broccoli are probably going to eat broccoli, and they will get their friends excited too because they will be proud of their work. Students can also help research and source foods. Involving students in preparing the taste tests also boosts their interest and enthusiasm in the tasting. They can also research and select recipes. This is where family and consumer science classes or FCCLA chapters can be really helpful. As always, be mindful that there are practices in place to ensure food safety and quality. No one wants to eat broccoli that's been overcooked to the point of being gray and mushy, nor does anyone want to have a foodborne illness outbreak. Simple food safety training goes a long way here. Culinary teachers and extension agents have helped provide food safety training to students who are involved in the preparation process. Many schools have seen success in having students help with serving the taste tests. They become ambassadors for tasting and get their friends and other students to try the food much easier than if adults were passing out the samples. It helps if the serving students were also involved in growing, selecting, and/or preparing the food. You can also have students help make signage, announce when the taste tests are being conducted, tally and post results, or do a myriad of other tasks. Pamela with Big Fork ACES After School program shared, I have a gifted kindergarten student who is collecting the data, asking the survey questions, and recording the information in Google Sheets. We have started bar charts to track the data. He's super smart. As I shared previously, be clear about expectations and roles when involving anyone else, including students. Choosing what to taste test is important. It needs to match why you are conducting tastings in the first place. So if you're conducting them for Harvest of the Month, they need to feature the Harvest of the Month foods during the correct month. Make sure they are appropriate for where the recipe will ultimately be served. If you are testing recipes for your school meal programs, they need to be recipes that are scalable and appropriate for your program. And of course, be careful when scaling recipes and use guidance to properly scale ingredients, especially spices. When scaling up a brownie recipe for a tasting in Bozeman, the cocoa powder amount was increased more than it should have been and subsequently exploded everywhere, as you can see in the photo. As usual, make sure the taste tests meet your budget needs. Marcia and Ronan reported taste tests generally only cost her a few cents per serving plus labor. But think about the recipes you're serving and the audience. If you are doing taste tests with low-income families, those recipes should be affordable. When featuring a new food, offer it in multiple ways. I don't like canned peas, but peas are my favorite vegetable. By giving students the chance to try foods in different forms, you're giving them a chance to see that perhaps they do like beets, but not pickled beets that they've had in the past. On the topic of beets, don't shy away from the foods that maybe you don't like. I've heard from many people who didn't want to serve beets or kale in Harvest of the Month because they don't like those foods themselves. I recommend being a good role model and giving it a try too. You never know, maybe you do like beets when they're roasted. Think about sourcing and timing. If your kale for the kale chips doesn't arrive on time, you'll have to cancel the tasting, disappointing the students, or offer something else that might not fit in with the timing of your meal service. Both are kind of a bummer. I've said it a few times already, but consider food safety. If the recipe is being prepared in advance or transported, how will it be kept safe? It's possible that all of my food safety trainings and the recent romaine lettuce E. coli outbreak has me a bit on alert in regards to this topic. Also, make sure you have the correct serving or utensils for enjoying that recipe. Do you need sample cups, toothpicks, cutlery? It needs to also look appetizing, and the serving method plays into that. Create a buzz about your tastings by doing advanced promotion. If relevant, put it on the menu or school calendar. Add a blurb in the newsletter with dates and information about upcoming tastings. Use social media and tell staff or volunteers. If there is a bulletin board or opportunity for signs, take it. This is a cool chalkboard sign that a student in Hinsdale created for Harvest of the Month, which could certainly be adapted for taste tests too. Gallatin Valley Farm to School is a nonprofit that works with schools to implement Farm to School in Gallatin County. As you can see here, they are helping promote upcoming taste tests for schools they work with using Facebook. Positive promotions like these go a long way for building partnerships and support in a school or community. There are a few concepts and tips for helping students become adventurous eaters. Whenever introducing taste testing, be sure to cover a few expectations, including "Don't yuck my yum, please," which is a concept popularized by Food Corps. It is fine to not like a food, but we all need to allow others to sample and enjoy the food without a negative bias. Have you ever eaten next to someone who couldn't help themselves with, "I hate this," or "This is disgusting," or "This looks like brains"? It doesn't make the experience very pleasant, does it? You can provide students with polite ways to express their preferences, like "It's not for me this time," or have them explain, in non-gross terms, what they don't like about it. For example, "It is too sour for me." This allows them to really consider the food beyond if they think it's good or bad. To avoid some of this in the first place, it's also recommended to have the students try all at the same time. This is generally only possible in a classroom setting. Food Corps has the students cheers to that food and then sample it simultaneously. That way, if one student makes the yuck face or verbally expresses their displeasure, the other students are already trying it. As you know, children mimic behavior they witness. Staff and adults should support and jump right in and try a new food and model polite taste testing. If a principal comes in and says, "You're eating kale, that's rabbit food," that's not going to give the students a chance to make up their own minds and enjoy kale. Just as students can have a negative effect on their peers' enjoyment, they can also have the opposite. As I mentioned earlier, having students prepare or serve the taste test can go a long way in getting other students on board with sampling. And who doesn't love a reward? Provide simple incentives for students to try a new food, such as stickers, their name entered into a raffle, or even just the simple opportunity to vote their opinion. It really does work. Lastly, it's important to allow students to decline trying or finishing a food they don't like. No one is going to start loving lentils if they are forced to eat them. Encourage hesitant students to try the food by smelling or licking it. They can also quietly spit the food into their napkin if they don't like it. Also, your tastes change over time. Share a story of how you didn't like a food, but after trying it many times and with time, you finally came to love it. But again, it's okay if they don't like it, and they just need to be polite about it. Don't let this incredible opportunity pass by. Use your tastings to collect input and then put that input to work. You can collect feedback by voting, and I'll show you a few of those options. You can collect longer form responses through surveys, either verbal or written, and then you can also monitor plate waste for that item. Once you have collected this data, use it. Use the feedback to set your menu, tweak a recipe, or when relevant, post those results. If students love a recipe and it doesn't appear on the menu in the future, they will be disappointed. Also, if the feedback you collected is that students really didn't like the recipe and it ends up on the menu, you're going to have upset students and a lot of waste. Either of those situations will reduce student interest. Moretta from Drummond Public Schools shared how she puts votes to good use. After our kids unanimously vetoed the lentil brownies, we knew we needed to save the industry with a great comeback. This chicken lentil soup was a smash. K through 12 students requested this as a menu regular for next year. And Lindsay and Polson explained how they collect and use student input. Every time we have a new menu item, we make enough for everyone in the district to have a tasting bite. It's offered to the students by a lunch service personnel, and we are training so that it's never given the first time as a self-serve item on the salad bar. Often, our staff will call the item a new name for each lunch period to see which one entices more children to taste the new menu item. When offering new foods, we ask if the students would like a taste, we thank them for trying something new, and then we check the trash cans after the meal to see how the item went over. We could do a better job on getting immediate feedback from the students or offering a side-by-side taste test to give them an A or B type option for a specific recipe. I think it would be best to have open-ended question prompts too. Montana Harvest of the Month uses the tried it, liked it, loved it method for voting. You can adapt this method to meet your needs. Here you see the voting cups with corn kernels as the voting token. People also use buckets with pebbles or coins or jars with beans. You can see here that they created great signage for the tasting and used a poster with stickers to tally the results. Some sites have reported that students will vote based on the number of stickers on the chart already. This is not an anonymous or scientific data collection strategy. The great part about signs, though, is that they are a visual way to show students how they voted as a group. Beth with Gallatin Valley Farm to School shares, it's a nice added bonus if you can have the whole uncooked form of the Harvest of the Month item for students to see on your taste test table, such as the whole apple or a container of lentils. She also recommends having posters or signage near the taste test station. In a classroom or small group setting, you might have students raise their hands to vote. This is the least exciting method for students, but it is much faster than the others and doesn't require you to prepare signs or containers. Lincoln McKinley School creates an online survey for their taste test votes, and it is linked in multiple locations online. This gives the students an opportunity to use technology while submitting their votes. Results can easily be compiled and shared this way. If you are collecting feedback or votes, students will definitely ask you for the results. Post results on a bulletin board, a social media account, newsletters, or in other settings. One school has students make the posters, which then include the results, and they hang in the cafeteria all year long. Whenever you're doing a taste test, be prepared for people to ask for the recipe, or you can head them off by sharing it right off the bat. Here are two examples of printable recipes. Montana Harvest of the Month provides the printable recipe cards on the right for participating sites. One parent shared the following story and requested a recently featured recipe. He says, "As a father of a very picky eater, I was shocked to hear my 8-year-old son tell of the Farm to School program at Pine Creek School today. This kid has never met a vegetable he didn't absolutely hate. Seriously, we have to hide spinach in everything so he doesn't develop scurvy. So when he came home raving about zucchini roll-ups and how he'd eat them every day, I nearly fainted. If it is at all possible, I would love to have a copy of this recipe. We are so thankful to live in Montana and to have these types of programs available to our children." In my opinion, interactions like this one make the extra effort completely worth it. I've mentioned a few programs and resources that I'm sure not everyone is familiar with, so I'll talk briefly about those. Much of this presentation is based from the Montana Harvest of the Month Taste Test Guide, which is available for download. The Action for Healthy Kids Guide is another great resource that provides recommendations for tastings. Farm to School is an umbrella term for programs that enrich the connection communities have with fresh, healthy food and local food producers by changing food purchasing and education practices at schools and preschools through the 3 core elements shown here. Procurement. Local foods are purchased, promoted, and served in the cafeteria or as a snack or taste test. Education. Students participate in education activities related to agriculture, food, health, or nutrition, and school gardens. Students engage in hands-on learning through gardening. Also, the definition of local in farm-to-school programs is decided by the school or community and could be defined in ways such as within a certain number of miles, within state lines, or a region. You choose what makes sense for your area. If you're featuring local foods in your taste tests, and I hope you are, then include information about the farm or business that it came from to gain student, staff, and parent interest. The Montana Harvest of the Month program showcases Montana-grown foods in Montana schools and communities. Each month, participating sites focus on promoting one locally grown item, for example, winter squash, which is this month's item, by serving it in at least one meal, snack, or a la carte offering, displaying and distributing Harvest of the Month materials. Additionally, schools in early care and education settings participate by offering taste tests to students and doing educational lessons and activities. Montana Harvest of the Month is a perfect way to launch or grow farm-to-school or farm-to-cafeteria programs, as it provides an easy framework to follow and ready-to-use materials. Participating sites will receive a free packet of materials, includes posters and handouts, as well as guides, additional resources, and training. The two primary goals of this program are to expose children and adults to new healthy foods and to support Montana's farmers and ranchers. The program is now open to schools, after-school programs, summer food service programs, early care and education sites, and healthcare facilities. The business and community component is being developed and piloted. This year's calendar is shown here. You might notice we've added 2 items from last year, chickpeas and dairy. If you would like to register a site for Harvest of the Month, there are 2 methods. If your site is already participating in Harvest of the Month, you register for the following school year by submitting your end-of-year report by June 30th each year. New sites can register using our online registration forms. There are different forms for each type of program, so be sure you select the right one. I encourage you to promote and share your taste test experiences. You can send them to me, or you can use our Share Your Story form. I would also love to know how you put taste tests to use. Tag Montana Farm to School on Facebook or Instagram, and of course, contact local news media to share your successes, big or small. If you think of any additional questions, please contact me. I hope that you will jump into taste testing with your students, and hopefully you'll push yourself to try new foods and expand your food horizons.